Traditional paintings depict devils as black and hairy, with horns, beards, and hooves. In other words, they take on animalistic features, but they specifically resemble black goats. Why is that? The Old Testament describes a very interesting dual sacrifice from a religious history perspective on the Day of Atonement. Two goats, seire izim, literally the hairy ones among the goats, were chosen as a sin offering. At the entrance to the holy tent, lots were cast over them, one for Yahweh and the other for Azazel. The name Azazel contains two elements that hint at its identity, Az meaning goat, and El divinity. Returning to the ritual, the goat that was chosen by Lot for Yahweh was sacrificed as a sin offering, while the one selected for Azazel was kept alive, but sent into the wilderness to Azazel for atonement. See Leviticus chapter 16, verses 7 to 10. In an explanatory addition, it is specified that the high priest would lay his hands on Azazel's goat and confess the sins of the people. He shall confess over it all the iniquities of the Israelites, all their transgressions, and all their sins, placing them on the goat's head. This ritual does not establish a unilateral association between the goat and the demonic, as one goat was also offered to Yahweh. However, through the name Azazel, we find evidence of a demon possibly having a goat-like form. He dwelled in the wilderness, and rather than receiving sacrifices, he was sent a goat laden like a battery with the negative energy of sins. Just as we have designated places today for disposing of used batteries, in ancient times the demon-inhabited wilderness was seen as a dumping ground for spiritual waste. Additionally, we note that the Hebrew term for goat literally means the hairy one, referring to a long-haired species typically black in color. The term the hairy one or goat, seir, appears in at least two clear contexts associated with idolatrous sacrifices, even though in most cases it simply refers to ordinary goats. In Leviticus chapter 17, verse 7, the Israelites are forbidden to offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. Similarly, in 2 Chronicles chapter 11, verse 15, the idolatry introduced by King Jeroboam is described as establishing priests not only for the high places, but also for the goat and calf idols he had made. Regarding Jeroboam's calves, we know that they had golden statues in Dan and Bethel, and the king presented them to the people with the words, "Here are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." A similar event appears in the story of the golden calf, which the Israelites worshipped while Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the tablets of the law. Aaron introduced this idol to the people using the same words as Jeroboam. It is likely that the goats also had dedicated images and were worshipped with sacrifices performed by specific priests, whom the Deuteronomist warns were not from the sons of Levi. Biblical demonology remains largely unknown, but these two verses suggest that certain goat-like deities were part of Canaanite religious practices. However, their exact role or any potential connection to the golden calves and the exodus from Egypt remains unclear. Two other passages from Isaiah describe desolate places left in ruins after destruction, becoming a refuge only for eerie creatures. But desert creatures will lie there, jackals will fill her houses. There the owls will dwell, and there the wild goats will leap about. Hyenas will inhabit her strongholds, jackals her luxurious places. A more detailed version appears in Isaiah chapter 34, verses 11 to 15, this time referring to Edom's punishment. But the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it, the owl also and the raven shall dwell in it, and it shall be an habitation of dragons and a court for owls. The wild beasts of the desert shall also meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest. There shall the great owl make her nest, and lay, and hatch, and gather under her shadow. There shall the vultures also be gathered, every one with her mate. The Septuagint uses the word onokentauroi in the singular, which means a centaur with the form of a donkey. Saint Basil the Great comments on this. The name Onocentaurus suggests the composite and strange nature of the creature, unless it is itself a kind of demon, which at times draws us toward human affairs, and at other times drags us toward animalistic passions. A late Bronze Age ivory plaque, dated around 1200 BC, which was discovered in Megiddo, depicts a bearded demon with a lion's body and wings, attacking an ibex or a goat. Some scholars see a resemblance to Azazel, the demon to whom the scapegoat was sent into the wilderness. Others, however, are skeptical of this interpretation. Returning to the two passages from Isaiah, Saint Basil the Great also identifies the Onocentaurus, which the Hebrew text calls goats, as demons. As for the Onocentaurs mentioned by the 70, Aquila calls them hairy ones. They seem to represent a race of demons, shaggy and dark in appearance, whose very nature is to wander restlessly, never standing still on their feet, nor making use of reason. During the Hellenistic period, Greek culture deeply influenced Palestine. It was during this time that the god Pan and the satyrs, hybrid beings, half men, half goats, with beards, horns, and hooves, became the ultimate model of the demonic. These creatures were frenzied, uncontrollable, drunken, and driven by lust as participants in the Dionysian retinue. Although the goat-shaped devil took on its fully developed form during this period, as we have seen, it was not a new invention, but rather a deeper development of the ancient Semitic tradition concerning the hairy demon of the wilderness.